Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad that all of you could join us today. It is a very busy time of year, and we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us for a webinar about year-end giving. This is the wonderful thing about this time of year is many people are thinking about making charitable gifts at year end, and we have done a similar kind of webinar in the past at this time of year because we really like to have an opportunity to showcase the executive directors at Community Giving who operate various community foundations. They do a fantastic job connecting with the local community, and they're here as a resource simply to help all of you, whether you're a professional advisor, whether you're a donor. They are here to support you and assist you in anything that you are doing in charitable giving. Sometimes the gifts come directly to and through a local community foundation. Sometimes the gifts go directly to a charity, and that's okay too. Your local community foundation is there as a resource, and all of these wonderful team members, these executive directors, are highly qualified and are more than happy to visit with you. And one thing we always say around here, if we don't have an answer, we usually know where to go to get an answer to support you. And again, we just thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today. Um, we want to note that this webinar is being recorded. So if you do need to step away, no problem. We will be sending out a copy of this, a recording of this, so that you can watch it at your leisure. Also, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A tab. We will have a very specific part of the agenda today to focus in on your questions. So please put them in the Q&A tab and we'll get to them. And again, thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, who is going to kind of give us a basic overview. And very pleased to have Terry Foster, Executive Director of the Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation, kick us off. Terry.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome everyone. As he mentioned, I would like to share with you what is a community foundation. As you can see, it is a legal entity, a 501c3, that is usually started to support a geographic location, generally a community or maybe a region or county. And it is established to do good for the community and help individuals, businesses, nonprofits, with charitable giving, help to keep dollars, economic dollars, local, doing good right in our own communities. We also work very closely to understand the needs of our communities, to connect dollars and people who have a passion to support those needs with specific projects that are going on in your community. And we connect donors to not only be able to support their favorite causes, but also learn about other causes that they might become passionate about within their own communities. We hope that you will partner with community foundations, your local community foundation, if you haven't already. You can do that in a variety of ways, and we will hear more about some of these specifics later on, but professional advisors, those who advise clients about charitable giving, about taxes, estate planning, legal, all of those things are very, very important to helping our community our community foundations flourish. But we just really appreciate all of the generosity and those who are so passionate about their communities. And that is what makes a community foundation grow and so successful and will create impact not only today, but for generations to come. Next slide, please. I would also like to talk about what we hold. So we hold charitable dollars at the Community Foundation, and it's kind of like a charitable savings account or checkbook where you can put assets, cash or non-cash assets into a charitable fund. Usually those funds are invested for growth so that you can do even more good with your giving. And we have a variety of types of funds. So we're going to talk about, first of all, a donor advised fund. Many of you have probably heard of that. It's an individual or like an organizational charitable account that is invested. We now also offer an Acorn Fund. So typically our minimum amount for a donor advised fund is $20,000, but we understand that those who might not be able to reach that minimum amount also want to help out their community and charities. And so to help them be able to have a vehicle to do that and also partner with their community through the Community Foundation, they can do that with an Acorn Fund. And that minimum is only $500. There is an agency fund, and that is specifically for 501c3s or nonprofits, and it helps with fund management. It helps them have kind of their rainy day dollars or reserve dollars invested in a very prudent manner, making sure that they're following all of their fiscal responsibilities. And they also many times see a growth with their funds because of the visibility of partnering with their community foundation. We have a field of interest fund. So there are a lot of passions that donors have around certain areas. Maybe you're interested in children's services. Maybe it's seniors, the environment. Maybe it's lake quality, arts. In Brainerd, we even have a fund for dogs. So there's lots of unique areas of interest. And so you can support those specific funds that you might be passionate about that would also be supporting your community. We also offer scholarship funds. So maybe it's a memorial scholarship. And again, much flexibility with all of these funds. The scholarship fund, you could work with a school and they could help select the individual based on criteria that we have helped you establish. And you could be involved in some of that, or if you would like to donate the money and have that process entirely handled and know that it's done effectively and prudently, you can be rest assured that that will be done. Another type of fund I would like to talk about is an unrestricted and or sometimes like an operational gift that you might hear about. So when we have unrestricted funds for our community foundation, many times that is something that allows us great flexibility to meet our current needs. Just as any business or any growing organization would need dollars for growth, sometimes donors don't recognize or understand fully because they're not involved in the day-to-day activities what might really help for growth and to get to that next level to make even more impact. And so having unrestricted funds allows us to invest in more resources for staffing. It allows us to be able to do more additional grant funding that might be filling the gaps that maybe some of our donor advised funds are not filling in the community. But it really allows us to use the money where it's needed. So we appreciate those types of funds as well. Next slide, please. Okay. And I guess before I turn it over to our next speaker, I just forgot to say one thing. Along with the funds, we also have options that are endowed or non-endowed, meaning flexible funds. And so you can use all or part of the funds to give to your favorite charities. And so just want you to know there's many types of options with our funds. And I would now like to introduce Greta Stark-Crocker. She is going to talk about how we work with professional advisors.
Thank you, Terry. I'd like to talk a little bit about how we, as your local community foundation, work with our professional advisors. We work with accountants, attorneys, financial planners, and other types of professional advisors. And one of the key factors is we as a community foundation want to come alongside the professional advisor and the client and keep that relationship in mind all the time throughout the partnership, I would say, as we work together. Sometimes the professional advisors ask us, what's in it for my clients? What are they going to get out of this? And what are we going to get as a professional advisor out of it? What are the benefits? Well, we offer personalized giving plans. Each donor has different things that they care about, things that they're passionate about. If they want to do endowed funds like Terry mentioned, or have more flexibility, we can help with that. We have multiple flexible fund options we can do. We are also known for helping people carry on their legacy into perpetuity. Some donors want to have a succession plan. Next slide. And they also want to know how we support our advisors. What do we do for the professional advisors that we work with? How can we help them and be a partner in their vehicle with their clients for philanthropy? Well, we provide guidance on charitable and complex gifts. So we have planned giving tools that we can use to help with trust and estate planning. We help with non-cash assets, which could be stock, an IRA, a 401k, life insurance, a variety of non-cash assets. Where there's a will, there's usually a way, as long as it's legal. Networking opportunities. We provide networking opportunities for our professional advisors and our donors even to come together and learn about current needs in our communities, different law changes related to philanthropy, and other opportunities. Next slide. When we work with our professional advisors as your local community foundation, a lot of times we'll have a professional advisor call us and say, hey, can you come over? The specific professional advisor that I'm referring to now is located close to us. So they pick up the phone, they call us, we're on speed dial. Can you come over and meet with a client? And we're like, yes, we will. We'll be right there. Concierge level service. We meet with the donor, potential donor, and the professional advisor in the same room, sometimes with their family. And we bring our teams together to help them set up a donor advised fund. After we talk through what their goals are, because we always want to listen before we advise. We take in notes of what they'd like to accomplish, and then the foundation goes back and prepares a fund agreement. After the fund agreement is signed, the donor signs the fund agreement, and then it comes back to community giving for the final signatures. And after that, we get to send out a welcome packet and get them going on their journey in philanthropy. We make sure the professional advisor works with the donor to transfer assets over to the foundation. Next slide. An example of how we work with professional advisors too, I mentioned educational opportunities. The one you see the picture of here in front of you is one of our Brews and News. This one just happens to be from 2023, it looks like on the sign there. But what we do is we meet, usually it's at a brewery, thus the Brews and News. And we bring in a professional advisor to talk about a current thing that's happening in the field of philanthropy, tax law changes, and other opportunities. We are always open to ideas and suggestions for those learning opportunities. With that, I'd like to turn it over to AJ Kohler from Alexandria.
Thanks, Greta. As Greta mentioned, my name is AJ Kohler, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alexandria Area Community Foundation. I'm just going to take a minute to talk about the transfer of wealth study and then assets people can give. So the transfer of wealth study, as you can see on the slide, it was a study done by the University of Minnesota Extension that looked at how much money and property will be passed from one generation to the next over the next 10 to 15 years. So as you can see, 105 billion will change hands between those generations over the next 10 years. Next slide, please. We have a link on our site that you can click on if you're curious about the specific county where you live. So this is just an example from Pope County. So this study is amazing, and it kind of does a deep dive in each county. So for example, the current net worth is $3.4 billion for Pope County, and the amount that will transfer over the next 10 and 50 years is 133 million or 765 million over the next 50 years. So the reason this is important is the transfer of wealth for the next generation could then leave the community, and we're trying to capture even just a small percent, even 5% to stay in the local communities if it's transferred, which would create endowments, grants to support the whole community. And this transfer of wealth is a collaboration across the state of Minnesota. So no matter where you live, you will probably see this really great information. Next slide, please. And wealth, it just isn't cash. It includes property, investments, real estate. So together we can help make people and their estates that they leave behind and just help them with that work. And when people recognize that wealth that already exists here, then they can imagine going forward what it can do for their community. And as I mentioned, wealth just isn't about cash. We can go to the next slide. I want to talk about all type of gifts that you can give, from cash, stocks, real estate, and on. So first, cash, property, and stocks can be used to make a gift to a current fund, or these type of gifts can be used to establish a fund. So when individuals donate property or appreciated or closely held stocks, they also may be available for to tap a tax deduction at the based on the fair market value. So they also possibly may avoid capital gain and estate taxes. So especially this time of year, we're really busy setting up funds or helping people add to their funds before the year end. And gifts of stock, we make it really simple for the donor and their advisor to make a stock gift. There is a form that is easily accessible on our website. And all you do is you work with your professional advisor, or you complete that form with all of the information, and then it's sent to us and our finance team to help with your stock gift. Gifts of real estate. So we have a real estate giving, I guess, organization that supports the gifting of real estate for charitable purposes, and it helps facilitate and simplify the process for donors who wish to make these types of gifts. Real estate giving is a single entity company, and it's wholly owned by Community Giving. And a lot of people don't know this, but real estate was one of the single largest asset classes of an individual's overall wealth in the United States. Compromising an estimated 40% or more of an individual's net worth in the country. However, real estate gifts still account for less than 2% of all charitable giving on an annual basis. And this is due to large part between barriers when it comes to trying to do gifts of real estate. So our real estate giving was formed and created to assist nonprofits, donors, and advisors with making these amazing types of gifts. When you think of real estate giving, consider real estate gifts of a house, condominium, commercial building, farm, ranch, or even undeveloped land. Next, I want to talk about bequest. So essentially, a bequest is naming Community Giving or any of our partner foundations as a beneficiary in a will. And that's usually the easiest way to make a significant gift, is through a bequest. Or life insurance, if a donor wishes to name Community Giving again or any of our partner foundations as the sole or partial beneficiary of their insurance policy, then the charitable proceeds of the policy may avoid both income and estate taxes. And another option is also to transfer the ownership of the policy to Community Giving. Next on the list, kind of think of these as gifts that help you now, but then can help the charities later. So a charitable remainder trust is cash or property that is transferred to a trust, which pays the beneficiary either a variable income equal to a fixed percentage of the trust fair market value that's determined every year, or a fixed amount, annual amount. And then upon the death of the beneficiary, the foundation receives the remaining assets, assuring that they can be used for the purpose that the donor wished. And then charitable gift annuities is very similar. Cash or property is contributed to the foundation in exchange for a commitment to pay the donor or other beneficiaries a specified annual amount for the remainder of the beneficiary's life. And then deferred gift annuities. A deferred gift annuity is the same as a charitable gift annuity, but the payments of income are delayed until a predetermined time. And then finally, retirement plan assets. Using IRAs and other retirement plan assets is a thoughtful way to make a charitable contribution. It can provide a donor with a number of significant financial and tax advantages. Unlike many assets, retirement plan assets are potentially subject to both income and estate taxes. So naming Community Giving or any of our partner foundations as the beneficiary of a retirement plan can eliminate estate and income taxes. So this is a lot of information. As you can see from all that I went over, generosity comes in many forms, and it's our pleasure to help our donors find the ways to get the most out of their giving and help them with their giving. So thank you. Now I would like to introduce Sarah Carlson. She is the Executive Director of the Willmar Area Community Foundation.
Thanks, AJ. On the screen, you'll also see an example of our planned giving website. So as AJ just capably articulated, we have a number of ways that we can take gifts and put them to good charitable use in the community. And so if you ever have questions, you want to use a calculator for yourself or a client, or you want to run a demonstration on how a specific tool she just laid out would look for your client, you can go to our planned giving website, which is there, plannedgiving.communitygiving.org, and it will guide you through. If at any time you need the assistance of one of us as a staff member of community giving to the assigned divisions of our philanthropy family, don't hesitate to call us. We are here to help. Next slide, Amanda. So in addition to trying to ensure that we are meeting the needs of the donor, we also are really mindful that our job at community giving is to steward trust. And so when we work with professional advisors or existing fund holders that already work with us, we know you are transferring trust in us to your referred client or referred friend. And we want to earn that trust with that donor and new fund holder of ours. Next slide, please, Amanda. So we have a number of ways that we do that. While every donor needs concierge level service, meaning they need what they need in the moment they need it, and it is our goal to provide that, we also have a number of tools at our disposal that are available to every donor and fund holder. The first of which is our donor portal, which I'll show you in a moment. We also have some expertise around grant making, so we can guide clients and new fund holders about how to use their funds to make grants or distributions from their fund to eligible intermediaries or 501c3 organizations, how to gift into their fund in an ongoing way. So beyond the time that they made their initial gift into their fund, they will need support in making additional gifts. And perhaps they're using a different tool or a different technique in the future. It is our goal as staff to be here to assist you all not 24/7, but close to it. We always have available resources at your disposal, and we are at your disposal. And then we also have a serious amount of expertise about how to connect donors directly to community level at needs that are emerging. Next slide, please. So here you'll see a screenshot of what our donor portal looks like. This portal is available 24/7 to our donors, and they have a unique login code that will connect them only to see their fund. So they can log in, they can ask for that access at the time that they set the fund up, and then they can go back to that tool at any time that they'd like to see their fund balance. Next slide, please, Amanda. That they'd like to see their fund balance. They would like to potentially recommend a grant or see if a grant they've recently requested be made on their behalf has processed. They can see their contribution history. The really cool thing also about our donor portal is that if they've made a grant in the past, maybe a year ago, and they're not certain if they've made it again, they can not only see that on the donor portal, but it will be queued up and ready for them to repeat that grant or re-recommend that grant without loading in additional information. So they can just pull that grantee forward, make the new grant award, and submit it to our very capable grants and finance team, and they will enact that process then for them. So this is a screenshot of what the inside of the donor portal looks like. Investment returns are posted on the end of the quarter. So usually within the first 20 to 25 days of the month following quarter end, all of the investment returns are reconciled and posted back to the funds, and then those will be reflected for donors to see how their fund is doing using the investment vehicle they've selected. If they have a grant that they have recommended, those are updated monthly. So those would be shown in more real time so that they can see fund balances. Next slide, please. Again, grants can be made out to qualified charities or entities that are located there on the screen. Sometimes there are some exceptions, and our staff vet out and verify all of these grants as eligible. And if there is an issue or a challenge, then staff contact the donor directly, the fund holder directly, and we work that out. As my colleague Greta said before, our job is usually to find the pathway to yes. So if there is a way that we can make that grant in good conscience and legally, we will do so and assist the client to find that answer. We represent and grant to over 7,000 nonprofit organizations in Minnesota, and our minimum grant distribution from a fund is $250. Now, sometimes people ask how much of those dollars actually stay local. And while we don't have an exact figure because our donors are granting every day, it is the lion's share of assets that stay here in our region in Minnesota, but we do have the capability of making grants nationally and even to worldwide causes as long as they are supported by a US-based intermediary who is an eligible 501c3 organization. And dollars do leave all of our funds to do work at a national level, particularly in times of disaster or around international disaster-based grant making. At any time, if you do have a question about a really good partner tied especially to disaster, our community foundations have a specialized set of expertise around disaster philanthropy. And we keep on our website at Community Giving resources for donors, which always includes a page about active disaster grant making. And we update that when there is an unfortunate example of a disaster that has affected our country in particular, but sometimes worldwide. And we know that you as generous folks will want to assist. So at any time, you can check that page out as well. Next slide, please. As I said, there's always a time to make a gift into your fund, not just when you set the fund up. We do have credit card and online giving, which is what's on the screen in front of you. So you can easily direct a gift to us. You can also direct a check or a distribution from a stock or real estate or something like that, as AJ capably laid out for you. My best advice, if you want to make a simple gift via a credit card, absolutely use our credit card portal. If you are thinking about using a non-cash asset, it is always wisest to have a conversation with one of our staff members first, so we can assist you in streamlining that, tagging in the right experts, and ensuring we've given you all of the information for that gift to transact smoothly. Next slide, please. And finally, our staff are here to be a bridge between donors and the communities that you care about and the communities we represent. So it is not uncommon that my colleagues and I will spend time researching a nonprofit, connecting to a cause, making sure that we are giving our donors all of the information that they need. This is part of that concierge level service that we try to provide to everyone that we work with. You are not putting us out or giving us additional work when you ask us questions about how to amplify and engage your philanthropy or to do that with a client. That is what we are here to do. So please do feel free to give us a call at any time. We have a wide network of nonprofits and businesses and government agencies and faith communities and education communities that we work with all the time. And so anything that a donor wants to do, we can often craft a custom way that they can do that work using their fund and the asset that they want to give. In addition, our community foundations are actively involved and often leading community initiatives, engaging volunteers around causes and issues that are important to them, such as our women's funds, or potentially work around scholarships and other kinds of unique opportunities in the community. And a recent example includes During the federal shutdown, there was lots of donors who wanted to help with food insecurity. And the Community Foundation staff are really well suited to assist you in doing that anywhere that you might want to do it. We are also really aware of gaps and needs. We are often interfacing with those nonprofits, and they're telling us what they need and what would help them do their work more effectively or efficiently. So if you have a favored nonprofit and you'd like to know without necessarily signaling to them in advance, ask your Community Foundation staff if they know, or they can have that conversation. We often can do that for you. Now, to best show you examples of our bandwidth and expertise in action, I'm going to engage two of my colleagues, and they're going to share examples of their partner foundation working with donors and other entities in the community. We'll be starting with my colleague Amanda Reisanen with the Paynesville Area Community Foundation.
Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction and all the great information you shared. I'm going to share a recent example that really shows the value a community foundation can bring to donors, families, and nonprofit partners to achieve a shared goal. A few months ago, the program manager from Dollars for Scholars of Paynesville came to PACF with an exciting and complex opportunity presented to their program. A donor had recently passed away and left $100,000 in their will to set up a scholarship fund. Dollars for Scholars have worked with the Community Foundation in the past and was familiar with the services we could offer, so they knew we would be a trusted source to assist with this particular gift. The gift did come with the challenge of a tight timeline. The donor's family needed the fund fully established in less than a month for estate tax purposes. With the timeline and the size of the gift, that can be a lot to handle, especially for smaller nonprofit partners. And that is where the Community Foundation was able to step up and assist to ensure the gift was managed appropriately and completed within the donor family's timeline. Working together, we set up the scholarship fund, assisted with managing the investments, and overall keeping the process smooth and efficient so all the goals could be met within the timeline needed for all parties involved. And in the end, everybody really benefited from achieving those shared goals being met. Dollars for Scholars created a meaningful scholarship fund that brings further opportunities to students. The donor's family had peace of mind knowing that their loved one's wishes had been honored, and the estate taxes would be addressed with the receipt of the gift. And finally, the community gained a long-term asset to support students for generations. To me, this story is a perfect example of how a community foundation can partner with nonprofits and donor families using our expertise in handling larger complex gifts, and really in the end, achieving shared goals. Now I'm going to pass it over to Angela to share another example of how a community foundation can meet donor needs.
Thank you, Amanda. We appreciate that. I'm going to give you an example of something that Terry talked about earlier in the webinar when she talked about the different types of funds at community foundations. And so I wanted to give you a fundamental example of how community foundations are helping people facilitate charitable giving. And it's probably my guess that many of my colleagues here on the webinar have worked through this scenario multiple times. And so recently here in Derby, we worked with the family to establish a new fund. This family in particular, they wanted to honor their aunt, who was a longtime educator here in Derby. She had no children, but her nieces and nephews really hold a special place in her life, and they wanted to honor this relationship and legacy. And so they really wanted to honor her passion for education, and they approached the foundation for help. So initially, when we began the discussions and finding out what they really wanted to do, they had the intention of establishing a scholarship. But after talking with the donors, the different family members, and even getting input from their aunt, they realized that their needs would probably be best met with a field of interest fund that really supports education. And so earlier when Terry was talking about the different types of funds that we have here at the foundations, field of interest funds, they support a broad range. And so we felt like, and the family felt like this was a great fit for them. So now every spring, this fund is going to grant dollars to support innovative projects at elementary schools in our community. So it was really a win-win. But there's a couple of key things about this process that kind of highlight the fundamentals about how community foundations work individually with donors and families. First of all, this donor and this family, they don't live in Derby. They actually live in several different locations in the upper Midwest and even on the East Coast. And so regardless of geography, we were able to work with them to help establish this fund and get everything needed in order to activate the giving. So community foundations, we can accommodate anyone regardless of where you're located. Secondly, this fund is going to provide tax advantages to the donors and the family, which we all know. We've talked about some of that throughout this webinar. But in particular, for this family, it was really important that they had a vehicle that was able to accommodate all types of giving, because as we know, families are diverse and families all have different capacity levels to give. And so by establishing a fund at the foundation, they were able to meet all of the different capacity levels of family members to give into this fund, while those individuals also receive tax advantages. So this fund really allowed family members to give at whatever level was right for them, and receive benefits as well. So finally, with this fund in particular, the family wanted something that wasn't time consuming or burdensome for them to manage for really themselves or for their aunt. And so by partnering with the foundations, that really kind of brings in that trust level that we've talked about throughout this website, where community foundations can handle all the administrative and grant making from the fund. So families can really just focus on the impact that those funds are making and their dollars are doing. The other thing that was really key in this example is the family really wanted a degree of privacy in their charitable giving and their charitable contributions. They wanted to find a vehicle or a tool that they could give to that didn't highlight the level of giving or the amounts that they were giving compared to their other family members. And so we were able to work through some different scenarios, and through giving into this fund, there's privacy related to their charitable giving for this family and really any fund holder. So this is really just kind of a very fundamental example of how community foundations can provide personal service to donors, to families, to community members, and even some of your clients. So Meredith, I think it is now your opportunity to lead us into some wrap up and Q&A.
Yes, thank you. And luckily for me, all of our executive directors will be available to answer the questions you have. We have one in our Q&A tab. If you have more questions from today's presentation, please drop them in there. So one, since we're all here and all highlighted, wanted to explain the geography and who we can help. And as Angela so clearly illustrated in her example, we can help anyone and anywhere. But our foundations and community giving partner foundations stretch across the state, and luckily with Angela, all the way to Kansas. So it doesn't matter where a donor is, we can be a resource for them. So first question, and I'll pass this one to Greta, is since we're thinking about year-end giving, could I give from an IRA to a DAF?
That's a good question. If you want to get a charitable deduction, you cannot give from your IRA to a DAF. You would want to give it to a designated fund, and your local community foundation executive director can help you do that. The DAF, you have control. You get to recommend where the dollars go at any time. With the designated fund, you work with your local community foundation executive director to predetermine your charities. And it's just a slightly different fund agreement type.
Thank you. And we talked about non-gift cash gifts. So as we think about year end and making gifts, what information is necessary if you're considering a stock gift? AJ, do you want to take this?
Yes. So I talked about this a little bit at my section, but on our website, we have this amazing, easy form. So communitygiving.org/stock gift information, or you can find it from the tabs on the top that says giving and for advisors. But essentially, it's just a forum you work with and contact your financial advisor to help facilitate the gift. But essentially, you just walk through, you include your information, your financial manager's information, your email, and the name of the stock to be gifted or the number of shares of the stock to be gifted. And then you just fill it out and submit, and it goes directly to our finance team so that they know who the gift is coming from and where it should go. Your executive director can also help you too if you have any questions on the form.
Thank you. And I know in a previous role as a fundraiser, I've accepted unique gifts like a Mercedes-Benz. So Sarah, do you want to touch on some of the other non-cash gifts that someone might be interested in giving?
Absolutely. Non-cash gifts often can be very unusual, and we learn something every day here at the Community Foundation when our donors come to us with a unique opportunity. So one thing, living in rural places in the country, we often have approaches about gifts of agricultural-based assets, whether that is gifts of grain, that is land, farmland. We've even had conversations about gifts of implements that are fully depreciated. And we can engage on all of those kinds of gifts. Gifts of grain go straight to the elevator. We as community foundations are registered for farm service elevators. And so the trick is the grain needs to go into the name of the charity, in this case us, when it arrives at the elevator, so that it is never the asset of the farmer at that time or the producer at that time. Implements we typically advise are fully liquidated via auction or private sale, and then proceeds are directed to us to establish a fund or to go into a fund. Land, again, we would talk through using our real estate giving division. We actually have a gift of a farm in Grant County that we have here in Willmar. We are transacting that gift right now, and we've been the agent that has leased that production land to a local farm producer this past year. In addition, we have done mineral rights, gifts of mineral rights, both residential property and recreational or undeveloped lots. We have some real expertise inside our real estate giving division and the board of real estate professionals that advise us on how to handle those kinds of things. And we can do a lot of unique things with regards to real estate. Also, we can take other non-cash assets, and it's always worth having a conversation with one of us as staff if you are interested, whether that's a collection, it's crypto, it's fine art, it's the gift of a vehicle, as Meredith mentioned. Sometimes we have some unique vetting and verification we need to do. And so if you're thinking about gifting a less typical and non-cash asset, it's always best to think early about that and give us plenty of runway to navigate the due diligence, the vetting, and the process that it will take to transact a less typical gift. But those are usually very fun to learn something about as we get a chance to do that.
I'm excited for my first grain gift ever, and you helping me process this. So thinking of our nonprofit partners, what is information they should have if they are working with a donor who's interested in using a DAF to make a gift? Greta, do you want to take this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Some basic things that the nonprofits should know is that the best way to initiate a grant to their nonprofit is to have the donors work directly with their local community foundation. The process just goes a little quicker that way. If there's some special, unique thing about the gift, yes, contact the local nonprofit, but initiate the gift right away through the community foundation. Nonprofits should know that they do not issue tax receipts for donor advised funds because the donor got the charitable deduction at the time that the gift was made. Our memos usually have the donor's name and contact information unless they choose to be anonymous. So if you call us and ask us who the anonymous donor is, I'm sorry, but we're not able to provide that because we have to respect the donor's intentions. And donor advised funds cannot be used to they shouldn't be used to pay for pledges, tickets to an event, anything that's a personal benefit, but they can be used for general support or program related specific gifts. And the processing of donor advised fund grants can take between 5 and 15 days, depending on the Postal Service.
Thank you. So we're getting to the end of the questions I thought of during the presentation, but if you have any others, feel free to drop them in the Q&A and we'll grab them quickly. But my last question is, are there any changes to tax benefits this year as we think about year-end giving? Amanda?
No, there is not for this year, but looking ahead into 2026, there will be some changes. And if you are interested in learning about those changes, we did recently do a webinar. It is on our Community Giving YouTube, and it is called Smart Giving in Shifting Times.
All right. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A, so I'll pass it to my friend in the Great White North, Maya in Virginia.
Hi, everybody. Great presentations today. We would like to thank all the speakers and everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to your local executive director. We invite feedback on today's presentation, and our resources are listed on the Community Giving website. And watch for information on future webinars in the new year.